ordinarily you, but is there anything weird going on over there?
Define weird.
Oh, I don't know. Just weird, like out of the ordinary.
Nope, everything's good over here. And you?
Couldn't be better. Just checking. Take care.
Controversial, am I right? Being two of the biggest IPs in the last decade, among others, has helped them both sustain popularity, but perhaps not toward the critical level that many wish they could be at. I also have a strong connection towards them, but the reaction towards their biggest installments have been mixed to say the least. They have amounted to plenty of controversy and intense debate on the internet relating to the quality and effect, and while it is exhausting, I also have quite the things to say about it. With all the disappointing and high marks, I actually believe Warner Bros. Has treated DC worse than Disney treated Star Wars. My opinions vary on both, which I'll get to in a moment, and I'll try my best not to drag on to the same points. First, I'll get into my opinions with each one. Everyone is entitled to their own ones, so I won't be packing heat on anyone. On the DC side, they are pretty mixed on it as well. For every live-action film since 2013, I highly enjoyed Shazam, Joker, and The Suicide Squad. I enjoyed Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Justice League, just the Snyder Cut version, and Birds of Prey, but they didn't leave a powerful impact on me. For the rest, I didn't say, I thought they were okay. I don't watch the direct-to-DVD ones, as there's a lot, but I did have a fun time watching the Lego Batman movie. For Star Wars, I have enjoyed every movie that has been released since 2015, albeit on different levels. I highly enjoyed The Mandalorian. I've only seen a bit of The Bad Batch, have not seen the final season of The Clone Wars. I also say Resistance, which I had fun with, but I almost gave up on it after the first few episodes. Now that that's out of the way, I won't have to repeat my opinions and I'll move on. I'm not going to explain everything I say twice, so here we go. I'm going for the overall quality of a movie rather than just what the internet says. When you count all the Star Wars movies, only one has gone true negativity, being The Rise of Skywalker. Yes, The Last Jedi was intensely divisive, but that still means half the people who saw it liked it. The DCEU started with two polarizing films with Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, three disliked movies with Suicide Squad, Joss Whedon's Justice League, and Wonder Woman 1984, and Birds of Prey, whose quality I can't really put in a box. It's too all over the place. Lastly, we have the rest, being Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Suicide Squad, and Joker. You can say that one has made way more films, but the batting average is half, while the other has it higher. I'm leaving the television side out of this discussion and only focusing on the film division since I have not viewed enough to make a fair comparison. For that, I say Star Wars has the advantage, even if their track record isn't as impressive as people wanted them to be. Also, they left a bigger mark on the conversation before and after release. As the most anticipated DC movie in recent years, Batman vs Superman left a sour taste, while most of the Star Wars thrived in this department. When you go back and witness the hype, Star Wars had more people talking, which in a way had an advantage because they had less movies. They feel like a bigger event compared to DC because of what general audiences were looking for and then getting most of what they wanted. Now to get corporate. Lucasfilm has produced everything significant since The Force Awakens, with 4 out of 5 grossing $1 billion, and The Mandalorian being nominated for Best Drama Series at the Primetime Emmys twice, and winning 7 for each season. They've only had one bomb, with Solo, but it hasn't affected their successes either. On the DC side, they had only made $2 billion hits with Aquaman and Joker, with the latter receiving a Best Picture nomination at that year's Academy Awards. Their efforts led to their HBO Watchmen series outright winning Best Limited Series at the Emmys. In their reputation, they only had 2 financial bombs, with Wonder Woman 1984 and The Suicide Squad, but they released during a pandemic and through streaming, so it's not entirely their fault. Anyway, back to the companies. In Lucasfilm's aside, they have Kathleen Kennedy as president ever since Disney bought the company back in 2012 and has been in charge of whichever projects that reach the public, especially the live-action content. A massive amount of the internet despises this woman towards a problematic level, but I'm only mixed on her. She needed to make better decisions with talent and business before, and it definitely needs it now, even with her successes. For now, I say her victories outweigh her failures, but not by a lot. What makes this interesting is that many know who runs Lucasfilm because Disney keeps those same leaders for years, but the same can't be said about DC. I can't even remember who runs the studio since they've been always changing bosses every few years. I had to do some research, as for a while they used to have Diane Nelson, but she left in 2018, and since then they have had Jim Lee. Much can be said about Lucasfilm, but one thing you can't say about them is that they have a brand identity crisis, as they've been pretty consistent in showing what Star Wars is. That's thanks to Disney's former CEO Bob Iger mostly leaving his companies alone, but things might change with Bob Chapek, so we might have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I like money though. I like money. Can't believe you like money. We should hang out, because I like money. So you like money and sex? You're tripping me out.
DC has been definitely having an identity crisis, with executives and creatives barely knowing what their brand should be, with people getting fired, last-minute reshoots, and fights with almost every major project. With each set of leaders and executives, they all want something different, with conflicting expectations that have had them switching plans, which they laid out years ago. The drama with Justice League was so bad that they had to re-edit the movie to make a quality project, but it didn't happen until years later and thanks to an upcoming streaming service at the time. Since that topic has been covered so extensively by others, I'm not going to talk about it here. I hope people can get my point, that even with the faults that Lucasfilm has, you can at least have a grasp on them and can tell what they're about, unlike Warner's DC.
You're so dark! Are you sure you're not from the DC universe? I love dubstep!
Star Wars' quality is not entirely consistent, but where it is their tone. I'm not saying it's all the same, but even when there's variety, you can still tell it's Star Wars, both in each of their individual installments and when put together. The darkest that they have ever gone recently was in Rogue One and in the very last arc of Clone Wars, but even they had some occasional levity and charm that felt natural. Even The Mandalorian, which many assume would be this gritty and hardcore series, had plenty of wacky humor thanks to a certain baby. I wonder who that is. For the other side, DC can't even be consistent with itself for even a whole year, as panic over BVS led to changing what Suicide Squad was supposed to be into something that wasn't even planned. Like I was saying earlier about the rapid shifts in executives, they can't properly decide whether to be grim or lighthearted, and others can't even achieve a healthy balance, which leads to a tonal imbalance. I just had this thought a while back, but the first half of the DCU was inspired by new comics that were made only a few years before release, while the second half, starting with Aquaman, has more old school inspiration, which explains so much. Speaking of grim, it's okay for DC to have a serious tone, just like with those of Snyder's, but this much of an extreme is just straight up unhealthy. Even the Dark Knight trilogy had humorous moments that fit in with the narrative, as Man of Steel and BVS feel like it's somehow wrong to give the characters the relatability that even the darkest comics had. At least the Justice League, the Snyder Cut version, had some humor, but even that needed some work. Now I want to get into their development for a bit, which I also don't want to drag on. There's no need to re-explain the drama that Kathleen and Lucasfilm has had in terms of losing directors and conflicting with those who have stayed. With some exceptions, they've had a spotty track record that removed the goodwill and trust that a section of the fanbase has had when hiring talent. For DC, imagine that, but much, much worse. They have announced way more projects that either we still don't know much about now, or have been cancelled. To name a few, there's Cyborg, New Gods, Deathstroke, a Harley Quinn and Joker movie, and a Ben Affleck Batman movie, alongside way more. For those that have been released, most of the directors, with some exceptions like James Wan and James Gunn, have had feuds with the studio for not letting them make the movie they wanted conflict-free. Only a small amount has stayed to make more, but you can already see where I'm going with this. With the never-ending stories and headlines, a part of me is grateful that Lucasfilm were even able to release what they had, even though they still need a massive improvement. They haven't affected me much since I liked what we got, but it can be better, especially since it is Star Wars. I really thought that I would have more to say on this, but I feel that enough was said before it got turned into a rambling mess. I wanted to get straight to the point and not add any unnecessary topics, since I proclaimed what was in my mind. I loved both properties since I was a kid, and since I have grown older, I found more to appreciate in their merits. With how mainstream they've been for decades, they aren't going anywhere anytime soon unless their companies go completely bankrupt. When you follow them for a long time, one has noticed that there is indeed toxicity that has plagued those who were unwilling to make the right choices when something didn't satisfy them. What makes this interesting is that with the people I know in my personal life, not all of their opinions are positives, but definitely showcase a better behavior than someone who puts too much time online. As long as I feel joy and entertained, I will keep watching them, but I feel more value and enjoyment over Star Wars' track record rather than that of DC's. I hope that the people who were civil during this debate continue to be civil, as they play a massive part in these franchises remaining alive. They will never leave my heart, just like they never did back then, and I hope to see them both fix their mistakes, so that there exists more to like. I'll see you on the next one.